Welcome to another edition of Bleav in Giants. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion, Carl Banks. Carl, the off-season part of the 2023 season is over. Players will be back for training camp in the end of July. Everybody's got a little time off. Coaches have a little bit of time off. Players get a little bit of time off. We have time off. But most importantly, we got to do a little recap of what we saw and some of the musings. I know there was something on Twitter that absolutely had you apoplectic last week.
I don't even know if it was. I wasn't apoplectic, but the fact that I think someone, I know someone posted, without context, Jaylin Hyatt is running with the third team all week, and I'm like, okay, and like, why is that even a story? Number one, he's a rookie. Number two, he's learning. Number three, there's a depth thing called depth chart, and I don't think he was like the Giants' number one draft choice.
He was a third-round pick.
Yeah. So welcome to a winning culture, folks, where you have to earn it, and it's not given to you. And then, a lot of smart asses are like, oh, are you trying to say it's a winning culture? That's how winning cultures operate. So they're operating like a winning culture. So don't worry about Jaylin Hyatt. He's learning. And I would venture to say he's probably trying to keep up. The pace is pretty quick. And he comes from a college situation. He's learning a new playbook. There are a lot of listen. I saw Wan'Dale Robinson out there, Sterling Shepard's out there. You got your free agent class that's out there, and then you got your returning wide receivers. Those returning from injury, like Shepard. Guys are competing. Welcome to the big leagues. And for those who think that because you hyped him up to be this bigger than life figure, that he should have been running with the first team. Why? And it doesn't make him a bad player. Doesn't make him a great player. Just manage expectations. The coaches know what they're doing. So he's going to, I think he's going to be working this offseason with Sterling Shepard here in New York, in the New Jersey area. So he's just, he's learning, man. He's coming along, and, it's a long season. And when you look at the way rookies contributed last year, expect him to contribute, but he's a third-round draft choice.
Yeah. And listen, we're not trying to give credence to whatever the post was that, barring injury, Jaylin Hyatt's probably not going to have any kind of role. And my whole thing is this. We have a lot of fans that follow this podcast. I'm the voice of the team. You're the radio analyst. You're a two-time Super Bowl champion. So we look at things a little bit differently, being inside the building and around it. And these kind of things will whip a segment of the fan base up into a frenzy. Everybody is excited that the Giants traded up and they got Jaylin Hyatt. But he was a third-round pick, which means that there is a learning curve and there are flaws to his game that precluded him from being a number 5 overall, Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith when they were coming out. So there's things that he has to improve upon as a player. You did the Inside the Film Room breakdown on him that airs on the Giants social media platforms. So it's a work in progress. Let it ferment. Let him absorb the information. Let the competition begin in training camp where he gets to go against the DBs, and then he goes against opposing teams' DBs, and he starts playing in game situations. And let's watch the player grow and earn his spot. It's that simple. He's not the 5th overall pick in the draft or the 8th overall pick in the draft, or Odell is the 13th overall pick when the Giants took Odell. He's a guy that was taken in the 3rd round with a lot of upside and with good coaching, Mike Groh coaching him at the wide receiver position. Kafka's the offensive coordinator, and Dable with his keen eye for offense. Let's watch him grow. Watch him learn, because the upside is there.
Yeah, but
Enough said.
you know, the obsession with charting plays in a 3-day camp. He's been a pro for 3 fucking practices.
I know.
Literally, with the veterans, he's been there for 3 practices. Whether you're impressed or not impressed, give him time. He's going to grow into it. They drafted him for a reason. He will be a contributor. But you know, the report that he's running with the 3rd team is, if it's breaking news, well, he's supposed to be running with the 3rd team until he moves up the chart. There are a few people he's got to pass.
So let's face it, you and I have a soft spot for Darius Slayton.
Yeah.
And what he's done and how he's sort of rebuilt himself and rebuilt his career to the point where, you know, he got himself a nice contract. And you know what I really love, like, watching? First of all, he looks like he's always having fun out there. But I like his I like his leadership.
Yeah.
In a subtle way. You know, he's not a boisterous guy, like, as far as, you know, really getting in people's face. But, you know, like, when you watch all the receivers work, he's first. The alpha, like, he's leading the way. And it's kind of cool to see a guy that last year might not have even made the team, or they might have traded him. And now he's first in line, showing everybody how to do it.
Yeah, the perseverance of that young man has been so impressive. But yeah, the one thing that is so obvious is just the way he moves around the building, the way he moves around the field. He works like a leader. He operates like a leader. But I'll tell you, the one thing that gives him credibility, and I said this from day one, the day I saw him in camp, Bob, is that he's always prepared. He knows what he's doing. He's one of the smartest guys on the team, especially in terms of his football IQ. So it's not like some dummy trying to lead guys. This is a guy who's self-confident, who his teammates will look at him. I'm sure he's got all the answers in the meeting. He knows adjustments, and he moves like that. He's not, you know, he's not a deer in headlights. He's not a guy who say, wow, I got a stay of execution, so let me see if I could make it another year. No, he earned himself a nice paycheck, and it's not impacting him, because for him, he probably already felt he deserved it, right? So he just had to walk into that. So I'm super happy for him. I had a conversation with one of the coaches during this past week, and it was funny. We were talking about the rookie banks, and the thing that really told me this kid's going to be all right, because they said he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And when you get a kid that doesn't know what he doesn't know, he's pretty fearless, you know, because he's not, you know, there are no stigmas attached to, well, you better be careful for this, well, you better look out for that. He doesn't know. He just goes and attacks it. You know, he attacks football, which I think that was a huge, I would say, just kind of a confirmation of who they got. Because you watch him on film and you don't see a lot of hesitation in his game. So he's a coachable kid, but when you get them when they don't know what they don't know, they're good to go. I mean, he's always going to learn, but he doesn't come in with any preset limitations, if you will, at the cornerback position. So I thought that was great. You know, I talked earlier in the offseason about what I'd like to see Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal do, you know, get some work together, and hearing reports that that's happening. And then I spoke to Kayvon a little bit this offseason, and I told him one thing that I would love to see, and it's not even visible to the untrained eye, but I told him I needed him to be as equally as good from his left side as he is from his right side. And basically, to put it in boxing terms, to have knockout power in both hands, and to be able to. And he's not deficient on the left side of the offensive line. I mean, the left side of the defensive line by any stretch of the imagination. But some of the things that he does when he's on the right side, and they're just little nuanced things that he needs to be as good as that from his left. And, people can look at it and they go back and look at film and they won't know what I'm talking about. But he and I had a conversation and he knew exactly what I was talking about. So I'm hearing that he's working on that, which is good. That's going to make him the most complete player. Evan Neal, they tell me he's working well. I haven't heard any reports on Azeez Ojulari, which may be good news. So, some of the key players are, they're working to get better, their leadership by example is good. And I like that. And, the schedule is what it is. Everybody plays it, stay healthy, stay available and see what happens. Everybody's saying, well, the Giants are playing a playoff schedule. They're a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, and again, the schedule is it's not a random, it's a set rotation, and they just happen to be playing the AFC East this year, which has really good teams, especially with Aaron Rodgers being added to it. And if Tua stays healthy, and Buffalo is a double-digit win team every year, and you always have to deal with the Patriots. So that makes the schedule hard. And then you're playing the NFC West. With Seattle was a playoff team last year. San Francisco is a perennial Super Bowl favorite. Mm-hmm. If Aaron Donald and, Stafford and those guys remain healthy, I mean, that changes that dynamic. And, Arizona's in a rebuild. So, yeah, the schedule's hard, but it is what it is. That the players and coaches don't worry about any of that. That's a fan media thing. I want to go back to the polishing yourself on the other side. Obviously, you played with Lawrence Taylor for a majority of your career. Mm-hmm. But it's not a video game in the sense that there were times where you lined up on the same side. There were times where you flip-flop. How did you perfect your edge rush and your technique to be as good on both sides? I mean, you mostly lined up on the tight end side, but not always. Mm-hmm. How did you improve yourself in that regard?
Well, we had more practice time. Number one.
Lot more, and a lot more hitting time.
Yeah. But if you didn't, there was someone waiting to take your spot. So you were like, wherever they lined you up, if your coaching staff had packages, right? And if you're ineffective, operating from one side, then you're not going to be a part of that package. But to be able to give the defense the versatility that it needed, that was why we were ambidextrous in terms of how we played. We had to learn every position. We had to know every technique from each side of the football. But knowledge is one piece of it. Execution and performance is another. So if you're really good on one side, you better be really good or equally as good on the other side, because then the opposition can't say, okay, we can run this when he's on this side because he doesn't hold up, or he's doesn't move laterally left as good as he moves laterally right. So those things are the things that you have to, if you want to be a great player, you've got to work on things from both sides, because, again, if a guy can only go left in basketball, then they're going to push him right. If he can only go right in basketball, they're going to push him left until he can prove that he can go left and make a shot.
Every organization has its tradition, right? I mean, obviously the older organizations have a much richer, steeper tradition, but, and then there's threads and there's ties. And I thought that the mini camp that they had last week might have been one of the really cool things if you're into sort of threads and ties, because I was thinking about what you were just talking about. And Brian Dable spent a lot of time working for Bill Belichick. And Bill Belichick was your defensive coordinator. And he insisted that everybody knows everybody's positions so that there's versatility, which now we fast forward from the mid 80s to 2023. And Joe Shane broke in, with the Miami Dolphins when Bill Parcells was running the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
And Dable comes from, that Belichick way of thinking. And you see the kind of players that they draft. You see the kind of players that make the roster are players that can be versatile and serve many different roles. So my long preamble to all this was, I walk into the Quest Diagnostics Training Center last Tuesday morning, actually last Monday. And, Darren Waller's in the cafeteria, see Daniel Jones. Tuesday begins the veteran mini camp. And when I walk in early on Tuesday morning, somewhere around 8:15 or so, who's sitting there holding court but Bill Parcells?
Yeah.
So he's there with Joe Shane and Brian Dable, and of course, Ronnie Barnes, who's been there forever, director of medical services, the best trainer in the National Football League. They're there. And it's just like all these ties and connections kind of coming together. And Coach Parcells was there and he was watching practice. Although I thought he was going to fall off the tackling dummy when they blew the whistle for the start of a period.
And the sound.
And the starting defense and starting offense all come on the field. And all of a sudden, everybody takes their helmets off. And they run through this thing to, make sure there's no contact. It's like, the new wave of the National Football League.
Yeah.
But I thought it was like really cool. I know you got a chance to spend a bunch of time with them during the practice.
Yeah.
We're going to share some pictures. We got some pictures that we're going to show. But what was it like catching up with Coach Parcells in person? Because I know you talked to him.
Yeah.
But to actually see him.
It was abusive.
Abusive? Some things never change.
Some things never change. Well, the beautiful part of it was, just reminiscing about the state of where the Giants is this year, coming off of a playoff win, and where we were. It was kind of a similar situation, and trying to get the roster together. So we talked a lot about that, and I got caught up in a round robin discussion with Dable, Ronnie Barnes, Joe Shane, and I forget who else it was. I have a picture of it. But they abused me because they were talking about practices and what was asked of players then and now, and Bill just started waxing poetically, and I'm like, Bill, that's nothing. You're admitting to abuse. That was player abuse. But it was so cool.
He's still got a keen eye though when he's watching this stuff, doesn't he?
Oh yeah. He's all. I mean, it was just awesome to see. And then Coach Dable was obviously he knows Coach Parcells. Joe Shane knows Coach Parcells, and just the familial connection of the Giants thread. And I think they asked Bill to break the team down, and I think he gave a speech on one of his best that he likes to give is the enemy from within, and just talking about what can tear a team down and what keeps them together. So I think that was one of the things that he talked about with this team after one of the practices.
Pretty cool, right? I mean, you got Carl Banks is there, two-time Super Bowl champion. You've got, excuse me, there's always a lot of former players around. It had to be cool, even for remember, these are 21-year-old, 22-year-old guys.
Mm-hmm.
Parcells last coached in the league in the early 2000s. So, like, in the birth year of these guys, his career was wrapping up.
Yeah.
But his presence in the building, the pictures, the montages that they have up, the photos, obviously the 4 Super Bowl trophies. He took a picture in front of the 4 trophies when he was leaving the building on Tuesday. Then Strahan pops in. So now the guys know who Strahan is from being on TV. And you're there. And it's gotta be a cool resource for the players to be able to kind of touch Giants history on a daily basis, because there's always somebody popping in the building.
And the beautiful part about it is that the guys who do come in the building, Brandon Jacobs was there.
Yeah,
as well.
Brandon was there.
The guys who come into the building are accessible. They're accessible to players. And as a matter of fact, I should have called you. Sterling Shepard was looking for a place to play golf in Orlando yesterday. And I was like, I called another buddy of mine. I forgot to even say, I said, Bob would know. But we've been resources for those players, but we're accessible if needed. I don't think we insert ourselves anywhere. But if the guy wants to talk, we're here, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and like Sean O'Hara's, because he works with us in the Giant media platforms. So what a great resource for, the rookie center. And he's already had a couple interactions with Sean about this, that, and the other thing. And, you're not overstepping, but you're there to help.
And here's the other thing too. The players that are there have accomplished something. That's the beautiful part about it. Like, they're not guys hanging on and clinging to modern day players. They're real resources that walk through the building that have, been champions, that can kind of talk you through some of the areas that may be bothering you at times, like a rookie who like a Jaylin Hyatt, right? He's got Sterling Shepard there, but he's also, Victor Cruz will be in that building.
And Toomer, the Giants' all-time leading receivers in the building a lot.
Help, a young player navigate, not coaching, but just helping navigate some of the nuances of the game to help, speed that process.
So it was a cool scene there. Listen, my little man Max, who's 8, he got to meet Bill Parcells. Didn't know who he was, but he sees his picture all throughout the building. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's him. And then they got all the Hall of Famers before you enter the cafeteria. That's him. Mm-hmm. That's the guy in the montage in the lobby. That's him. So kind of a really cool experience. And it was Giants history tied into the present and kind of all of the ties, which I think for Giants fans, I think that's important, because there were a couple of years there after Coach Coughlin where there was a little bit of a disjointed, right? It didn't feel like there was a giant thread to the past necessarily connected with the coaching staff or whatever. And it feels like, okay, it's there.
Well, yes. And and I don't want to say this the wrong way. But there were some instances where that thread was not even sought, because there's some coaches, head coaches, that'll come in that are very confident in what they can do, right, and what they want to institute. They're not intimidated by the presence of an ex-player. Maybe they use that player as a resource, or they're just not intimidated by them. And there are other coaches that have been in the building where, they, quite frankly, there was not intimidation, maybe insecurity, or just didn't want to have anything to do with anything. They're just insecure and wanted to close ranks around any and everything. So, but that's life. That's coaches. They're human too.
BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest, easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting, casino games, card games are available. Head to the website or your mobile device. Use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV. 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Just in wrapping up here, Carl, there was some news late last week that evidently the Barkley Giants camp opened up some talks again. There was a report that the offer that was pulled is kind of back on the table as a starting framework. Probably guaranteed money. The actual guaranteed money is probably what's going to be the sticking point here. But as my buddy Pat Kerwin, who you know well, always says, and Andrew Brandt, another guy, deadlines make deals, right? So we have until the midway point of July. Although the players are off and the coaches are off, the GM's job is you're never off.
Right.
So, Joe Schoen, I'm sure the Barkley representatives, it behooves the team. It behooves Barkley from a salary cap standpoint, from a injury standpoint, and a security standpoint to get something done. Positive news that as minicamp had ended and everybody dispersed, that there were Barkley talks as opposed to, I was thinking back to Parcells, the years that you couldn't get the draft picks in, the holding out era, that whole thing.
The thing is also with Joe Schoen, I'm sure he and his wife want to go on vacation too. And Joe Schoen has a boss. His name is John Nara and Steve Tisch. And they're going to ask him, how are we doing with Barkley? Because the thing is, you're not negotiating with a player who you don't think you want. I think everybody knows how the Giants ownership feels about him, but they stay out of the way. But they're going to want to know updates, right? And if you're Joe Schoen and your wife has a vacation plan for the offseason, with obviously, the wife of a GM, she always has to know that those plans could change or whatever. But I'm sure everybody, including Joe Schoen's wife, is hoping that, hey, maybe we can get this deal done so we can actually go on a real vacation before camp starts, instead of you running out of the house playing golf with a phone in the other hand.
Right. Well, let's hope it gets done. It would free up salary cap space. I think the Giants are a little under $4 million right now that they have in available space.
Free up mental space too, because this is in the heads of a lot of Giants fans too. So they would have a clear head going into camp, but I Bleav it's going to work out.
Anything else as we wrap things, as we button this up before the start of camp?
Nope, but you guys probably won't hear from me again until camp, and you'll see my pictures on Instagram for somewhere in the world, because I had a couple more spots to hit before the season starts.
Yeah, do you want to just share quickly before we wrap it up here about your trip that you went on?
Oh, just a little truffle hunting, a little tuna from the Adriatic Sea, little Croatian vacation, if you will. It was the most amazing trip.
So you went digging for truffles?
I went truffle hunting with some dogs and my guide, and I actually got 2 truffles. Well, the dogs got 2 truffles. We actually had 3, but the dog ate 1.
Really?
But it was so much fun, and then we ate the food, man.
That's thousands of dollars the dog was chewing on.
Well, they in that region, they're plentiful. Olive oil tasting like you've never had olive oil before. It's different. There are different levels to olive oil, and I had a chance to do that. Here's an experience that I can always say I had, but I would not do it again. 15-course meal.
Whoa.
9 flights of wine.
Whoa.
And this is and this doesn't include the other wines that they were serving us pre-dinner. And it was an experience, Bob. It was,
how could you taste the food after 9 different wines?
They don't give you a lot of food, bro. 15 courses, but it was about 5.5 hours in a dinner that starts at like 8. Just imagine. So it was a great experience. I can say I did it. But the wine was great. Yeah. And actually, they are getting a PGA endorsed course in the Istria region
Oh, really?
of Croatia. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a course that you literally look across and you see Slovenia to your left, and a little further out you see Italy.
The tuna
Pretty cool.
from there is pretty good. The
Dude,
Sicilian
I
tuna,
had
like when I was in Italy. Oh man.
I had when I had tuna tartare, I bit into it. They thought something was wrong with me. They're like, "Is everything all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is different.
Yeah.
This is different." And the thing is, the Adriatic Sea, they say, flows counterclockwise.
Okay.
So they get all the freshest water. That's why the tuna is so good. And did you know, fun fact,
Fun fact.
Croatia is the #1 supplier to Japan for sushi grade tuna.
Really?
Yep.
Did not know that. Little
Yep.
fun fact. Little
Yep.
tuna fun fact with Carl
There you go.
Banks.
Speaking of
Well-
Bill Parcells, the tuna.
Yeah. Perfect way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right. So how do we like to end it?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
We'll see you when camp starts. If there's any breaking news, obviously we'll drop in with a little shorty. But yeah, tell a friend to tell a friend. I got a big season coming up. Make sure you check out Bleav in Giants.